Welcome to the breakdown. I'm Allison Gill, and today I'm talking to the man himself who was on the ground today in the courtroom for a hearing about another probably unlawfully appointed interim U.S. attorney. This for the, I believe, Northern District of New York.
That's
And
correct.
and also, I have to say that, what was it, a couple of days ago, when it appeared that the Department of Justice was going to try to reindict Jim Comey and Letitia James rather than appeal Judge Curry's order vacating or dismissing the charges against them because Lindsay Halligan was unlawfully appointed. I said, do it. Oh my God, please do it. Go ahead. Try to reindict this garbage. See what kind of, first of all, you're going to have to find an attorney who's willing to sign off on it that isn't Lindsay Halligan because she's not legally there. And they did. They dug somebody up from Missouri, I think. And we'll talk about that. But they went in today to try to reindict New York Attorney General Letitia James on really, really dumb charges that we've already got enough evidence out in the public to know that she didn't commit any crimes here. And I said, do it. I dare you. You will fail. You will get a no bill, and I will laugh at you. And today they got a no bill. The grand jury, federal grand jury, refused to reindict Letitia James on those charges for mortgage fraud. We aren't quite sure why yet. We don't know what went on in that grand jury room because the grand juries are shrouded in secrecy usually. But that doesn't necessarily prevent grand jurors from talking to the press. And so we may get some information about what was presented, maybe what wasn't presented, or what the grand jury was thinking from a grand juror. But as of now, we don't really know what happened. I think I do, but we don't know for sure. So please welcome Adam Klasfeld from All Rise News. Really appreciate you being here today. Let's start with this very hilarious, no good, very bad day for Trump's Department of Justice and their attempts to reindict Letitia James.
So, as you noted, Allison, I spent the day up in Albany, New York, expecting to cover the arguments to disqualify a second Trump appointed prosecutor, first time prosecutor going after Letitia James. But I was aware that from reporting from MS Now that there was this other attempt to revive the case going on. And as you said, Allison, I thought that the Trump DOJ probably just didn't know what they were asking for, that this is, what the humiliation arrived. A grand jury no billing a case has been described to me by a federal prosecutor as a bolt of lightning. And it just keeps striking on the Trump Department of Justice. Usually it has been in the past in Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles and other jurisdictions. Now it has struck apparently a federal courthouse in Norfolk, Virginia, saying that no, they are not going to rubber stamp a case that accuses Letitia James, and this is true, accuses her of filling out forms inaccurately, also that she could save $50 a month in mortgage payments, that she had defrauded her mortgage loan to the tune of $50 a month, and making a federal case out of that. They got it past a grand jury the first time with Lindsay Halligan all alone in the grand jury room, and the second time with somebody else in a grand jury room. And we can talk a little bit later about Lindsay Halligan's practices before a grand jury, what she has been known to tell them to get it across the finish line. Perhaps with someone who accurately states the law, the grand jury took a pass on time too. So the day started with me in Albany, New York. I am back home in New York City, Lower Manhattan, hearing the news that has broke about the latest embarrassment, humiliation for Trump's DOJ. And based on what I saw in Albany, more embarrassment and more humiliation will come soon.
Yeah. So the big question, and I was texting with Anna Bauer from Lawfare about this. Do you think they will try again tomorrow? Um, we have seen in a couple of cases in the past, Trump's Department of Justice going back to grand juries multiple times and getting
Right.
no billed multiple times. So the question becomes, are they willing to get embarrassed again and again? Or do they have no shame? Are they above embarrassment? Is this guy from Missouri, I can't remember his name, going to try this again and risk getting another no bill? Or are they just going to relentlessly keep trying to do this because they just aren't, they're unembarrassable?
Well, if the past is prologue, they'll try it again. I interviewed Sydney Reed, a woman who had to go through 3 grand jury no bills before the Department of Justice, the Trump Department of Justice, gave up the ghost finally uh, on the grand jury route and said, we're going to charge her with a misdemeanor, and then we won't have to work with one of those meddling grand juries. Took her to trial, and she prevailed with an acquittal. And I said this in an interview with my friend Dave Arenberg as well, that the Trump DOJ got off easy. They could have left well enough alone and said, well, it's a technicality. Lindsay Halligan was improperly appointed. We'll fight it in the courts, but we're not going to try to revive the case. We'll let sleeping dogs lie because, if we take this case forward, the defense is going to get to look into the vindictive prosecution motion. They're going to get to litigate the potential grand jury misconduct and all other ways that this can end with greater embarrassment for the Trump administration. So, will they learn their lesson? Will they learn that trying to litigate this to the hilt will potentially backfire on them? It didn't with Sydney Reed. It didn't with the sandwich guy. So far, it is not working with Letitia James. They are 0 for 2 in the Eastern District of Virginia, in the Northern District of New York, which I'm sure we'll talk about. That seems like it is also headed toward disaster for various reasons. The one going to ahead today was the unlawful appointment, allegedly, of John Sarone. But there are other that isn't unlike those other cases that I've spoken of. It's just at the investigative stage. What's being litigated there is a grand jury subpoena. Actually, 2 grand jury subpoenas to be precise, and the cover letters. But that they haven't given up the ghost yet. We'll see if they ever do.
Yeah, so let's talk about a little bit more about John Sarone and that hearing that you were at today. A judge is trying to decide whether to quash subpoenas into Letitia James because Trump's Justice Department is investigating her for her lawsuits that she brought against the National Rifle Association and the Trump Organization. That, the one against the Trump Organization resulted in a $450 million fraud fine, which they reduced quite a bit at a second court, at a little bit of a higher court in New York State. They have different names for their courts. It's not called the appeals court in
Right.
New York
The
State, but
appellate division.
yeah. And so but that's that particular case. And so they were investigating her for her. Oh, they were investigating the investigators, which is their gig, right? That's what they do in the Trump administration. They investigate Bob Mueller. They investigate Jack Smith. They investigate Letitia James. They investigate Fani Willis. And so the judge today heard arguments because I think Tish James filed to quash these subpoenas based on the illegitimate appointment and unlawful appointment of the U.S. attorney there. This is the same kind of situation with Sigal Chattah, with Bill Asalee in Los Angeles, Alina Habba in New Jersey, and now Lindsay Halligan in the Eastern District of Virginia, where Sarone became the deputy attorney or U.S. attorney and then appointed himself U.S. attorney, like did all these trying to go around advice and consent of the Senate to be installed as the interim U.S. attorney in the Northern District of New York, up in Albany where you were. And from what I hear and what I'm reading from your reporting at All Rise News and from your posts on Blue Sky, it didn't go well for Mr. Sarone today. The judge did not make a ruling from the bench, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a favorable ruling in Sarkone's case. What did you notice?
So the judge who's presiding over that case, senior U.S. District Judge Lorna field. She's from the Southern District of New York, and she played her cards close to the vest, right? She did not let on her ruling, but I will say in her grilling both of the sides, she got all of the information that she needed. And I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if she became the outlier judge, the first of any district court and appeals court that has looked at this issue and said, the way that John Sarone got into his post is hunky dory, and these subpoenas can stand. One of the things that she elicited during her questioning of the government in this case was that it's John Sarkone's signature entirely on the subpoenas. And it says underneath his signature, acting U.S. attorney. And one thing that you said, you got to the heart of it, in circumvention of the advice and consent of the Senate, because this is about the appointments clause to the Constitution. This is about following the law set out by Congress in the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. And John Sarone, after his 120-day tenure and a rather scandal-ridden tenure in the Northern District of New York, we can go into that, the judges of the district refused to extend his term. So any action that he took since that time, including subpoenaing the office of the New York Attorney General to kind of gin up a federal crime out of pursuing two successful lawsuits, that makes that subpoena suspect. So she got that admission from them. She sharply questioned both of the parties about the fact that Pam Bondi, like she did with Lindsay, like she did with Alina Habba, retroactively designated John Sarone as a special attorney. Just this week, the Third Circuit said you can't do that. That's a way to indefinitely circumvent the advice and consent of the Senate, circumvent federal law in the way we do things. So we have small d democratic accountability. And just a couple of facts about Sarone. I mentioned the scandals in his office. It didn't come up in court, but it's interesting background. Sarone, a couple of months into his appointment, said that he was the victim of an attempted murder outside of his hotel in Albany by an undocumented immigrant. Surveillance footage goes public. We see that the encounter, however scary it may have been for Mr. Sarone, doesn't fall anywhere near that standard. The attempted murder charge collapses into a misdemeanor menacing charge, and local reporters, God bless local journalism, scrutinizing the police records in the case, find his address and see it's a boarded up home. So there is a concern of, does he even live in the Northern District of New York? So all of this was potentially in the background and maybe in the minds of the federal judges in that district when they decided, no, this former Trump campaign lawyer with no prosecutorial experience, he's not a guy that we think is qualified for this job. We're not going to extend his appointment. And to this day, he has been serving in that position without the advice and consent of the Senate and without the approval of the judges of his district.
Now, I've got about 5 more minutes. So really quick, did you say whether or not Sarone was the only person that signed those subpoenas?
The only person, and as a matter of fact, the attorney for Tish James made the point that it's even calling out more for quashing the subpoenas than it would be in dismissal in the case in Virginia, because in the case in Virginia, at least you had the signature of a grand juror. He did this solo. He walked in, and that if you go ahead with this, then you can take any old person off the street, have them sign a subpoena against a president's political enemies.
Makes sense. So before I let you go, I think that the Supreme Court felt like it should step in and save face for the Donald Trump administration a little bit when they ruled granting a stay on a lower court ruling that blocked Texas's new maps, their gerrymandered maps. And it was very obvious from the get-go, and the dissenters, the three liberal justices, mentioned this, that this was a racial gerrymander, because Greg Abbott came out and said, this is a racial gerrymander. And because the state speaker of the House down in Texas said, this is a racial gerrymander.
Hmm.
And so for the Supreme Court to say, we're going to stay this, the majority opinion written by good old Sam Alito, said this was a political gerrymander, not a racial gerrymander. And the three liberal justices are like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, they were like, no, this is definitely a racial gerrymander. But I think that this could ultimately backfire on Republicans, because now all Democrats need to do in Virginia, for example, where the speaker there, named Don Scott, I think, said in an interview yesterday or the day before that the legislature in Virginia is looking at taking their maps right now, which are 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and drawing it into 10 Democrats, 1 Republican. So we've already made up 5 over in California, and I can't imagine, since we said that this was political gamesmanship and not a racial gerrymander, that the Supreme Court wouldn't allow our maps to go forward too. It's like it's pretty much as we were talking about earlier, Adam. If you let the Texas map go, then you let all the new maps go. And I think that the Democrats can pick up more seats than the Republicans. And don't forget, a lot of these new Texas districts are only red by 7 or 8 or 9 points, and Afton Bain clawed back 13 points in a very deep red district in Tennessee. So this could backfire spectacularly on the Republicans. I think they might have kind of wished that somebody would have said, no, nobody can do any redrawing of any maps for the 2026 elections, because they might have had a better chance than they
Right.
possibly will now. So I'm just going to put some beans on it right now. I think this backfires on Republicans, but it is the wrong call by the Supreme Court.
Right. I mean, I would say that there's the arms race that they have opened up, to your point, that let's redistrict but state by state, and whoever contorts the map most wins. Is that the way to do a democracy? But to the point of what the Supreme Court did, it's worth mentioning that the lower court's opinion that had blocked the maps as racially gerrymandered began with an epigraph quoting Chief Justice John Roberts. It was along conservative reasoning saying that we need to be racially colorblind in making these maps, that even to redress historic wrongs, that opportunity districts are being called into question in a case that's currently pending before the Supreme Court. So how do they reconcile that? It was notable to me that Chief Justice Roberts did not appear. His name did not appear either in the concurrences or the dissents. He maybe doesn't want to be associated with it, but in order for that stay to have been granted, it had to have been more than those 3 folks on the right flank of the court versus 3 liberal justices on the left flank. So this could be a great embarrassment for Roberts, who has tried to persuade the public over and over again about the legitimacy and the balls and strikes nature of it. And here he is, apparently maybe aligned with the flank of the court that has paused a ruling that quoted him and his philosophy.
Yeah, and he really should have put his name on it. He's a coward. He should have let us know which side he came down on, and whether this was a 4-3 or a 5-3 or a 6-3
Mm.
ruling. So I think that it's going to backfire spectacularly for Republicans. All right, I got to go. I got to jump in the studio to record the Daily Beans and then record the Beans Talk video podcast, which is brand new. You can watch it for free at the MSW Media YouTube channel. But everybody, if you have a chance to support Adam Klasfeld's work, you can do that at All Rise News here on Substack. He doesn't have any corporate sugar daddies paying for his trips and his lodging and his trains. So please, if you have the means, please support and become a paid subscriber to All Rise News. Thank you all so very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. We'll see if we have a second or a third true bill in the Tish James case, my friend.
Thanks so much, Allison. And everyone should also support your great work.
I appreciate you. Everybody, we'll see you soon. I'm Allison Gill. Bye.